This is just called The Borrower. Emily loved old books, not the kind you find in any second-hand store, but the dusty ones that hid in forgotten corners, with yellowed pages and cracked leather bindings. The older, the better. She swore they held echoes of past readers, a quiet company she welcomed into her life. One foggy autumn afternoon she stumbled upon a new shop, its sign hanging crookedly, reading simply, "The last chapter." The storefront was narrow, squeezed between two run-down buildings, as if it had forced its way into existence. Its windows displayed only a single book, bound in a dark, almost black leather, without a title. As Emily pushed open the door, a bell chimed softly, sounding as though it were deep underwater. The shop was dim, and the air felt thick, with dust and something else, something heavier. Behind the counter sat a man, gray-haired and hunched, with eyes that glimmered too brightly in the shadowy light. "Looking for something special?" he asked, his voice gravelly. "Just browsing," she replied, though her eyes drifted to the leather-bound book in the window. The man followed her gaze. "Ah, The Borrower. A unique book, that one." Emily smiled politely, feeling a strange pull towards it. "Is it for sale?" The old man leaned forward, his gaze steady. "Not exactly. It's on loan. But it's not like any book you've borrowed before. The borrower requires something in return." Emily chuckled. "Like a late fee?" The man didn't smile. "Something like that." He paused, running a bony finger over the countertop. "It's only for those who truly wish to read it." She hesitated, but felt a thrill she hadn't experienced in ages. She reached for her wallet. "I'll take it." The old man's eyes darkened. "No payment, just your promise. When it's time, you must return the book. No exceptions." "Of course," Emily replied, wondering why she felt a chill despite the warmth of the shop. That night, Emily curled up with the book. The cover was soft, strangely warm, and smelled faintly of damp earth. She opened to the first page, surprised to find it blank. Frowning, she turned to the next page. Blank again, page after page, nothing but emptiness. She was about to close it when, on what felt like the 100th page, she found words scrawled in spidery black ink. "What would you give to know another's secrets?" She paused, thinking, "Secrets?" Intrigued, she whispered, "Everything." The moment the words left her lips, the ink began to swirl. Shapes, letters, and finally, images bled onto the page, forming scenes like still photographs. Faces appeared, strangers at first, their expressions frozen in moments of fear or pain. One face lingered. It was a girl, no older than 13, with tangled hair and wide, panicked eyes. Emily felt a jolt, like a sharp prick in her mind. As the girl's story unfolded across the pages in terrifying clarity, the girl was running through the woods, chased by something unseen but relentless. Emily gasped as she read on, feeling each heartbeat, every twig snap, every rush of terror. The girl didn't make it. The unseen horror dragged her into the darkness, leaving only her echo behind. The next day, Emily was haunted. She couldn't shake the girl's face from her mind. It felt as if she'd known her, as if her memories had been grafted onto her own. Worse still, she couldn't resist opening The Borrower again, to the next page. This time, a man appeared, staring at a mirror, his face hollow and empty. She could feel his dread, his terror at the reflection staring back at him, which was no longer his own. The story took hold of her, as though she'd lived it, as if she were the one who had lost her reflection to something in the glass. Days turned into weeks, and Emily could barely recognize herself. She lived with a constant, eerie sense of dread, an inexplicable feeling of loss. Every time she opened The Borrower, she felt herself slip further from reality, consumed by the lives and terrors of others. One evening, she noticed something strange in her bathroom mirror. Her own face looked different, a little thinner, her eyes sunken. Her skin seemed slightly translucent, like old wax. She hurried back to the borrower, her hands trembling as she opened it. But this time there were no stories, only a mirror etched into the page, its image as clear as glass. She looked into it, and her breath caught. Her reflection was smiling, but she wasn't. The reflection reached up, placing a ghostly hand against the page's surface, pressing harder, as if trying to push through. Heart pounding, Emily slammed the book shut. She knew deep down she'd made a mistake. The book hadn't been showing her others' lives. It had been feeding on her own. Frantic, she threw on her coat and ran through the night streets back to the last chapter. But when she arrived, the shop was gone. Only a boarded-up doorway remained, as if the building had been abandoned for years. She fell to her knees, clutching the book, its leather binding pulsing beneath her fingers like a heartbeat. A voice whispered in her ear, soft and satisfied, "You promised to return it, and now it's time." She felt a coldness seep into her, starting at her fingers and moving up her arms. She tried to scream, but the sound died in her throat. When Emily's eyes glazed over, her body collapsed on the empty street, clutching a blank book in her hands. A faint smile remained on her lifeless face, an echo of the soul trapped within the pages. In a small, forgotten shop somewhere in town, the borrower waited patiently on a dusty shelf, ready for its next reader.